Oh, shoot. I did not realize that I was on camera. It's okay, we put the weather camera up. It's fine. Put the weather camera up. It's fine. I'm trying.
Wait, what'd you do?
I was on camera. I did not know.
Well, we weren't on air.
But we were on streaming.
Oh, it's fine. It's not like you didn't hit your nose.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining me here at the First Alert Desk. My name is Carly Barnett. We want to continue to stay on top of breaking news that we have been covering all day long here at Atlanta News First. There was a shooting at Apalachee High School this morning. That is in the city of Winder in Barrow County, Georgia. And unfortunately, 4 people have lost their lives. That included 2 students and 2 faculty members. 9 others, at least, were wounded. We do know, according to investigators, that they suffered gunshot wound injuries in varying capacities. And we just want to get you up to date with what we know so far. We have team coverage for you all across Barrow County this evening as we continue to get answers and stay on top of this very serious story. We know that there are a lot of heavy hearts tonight in the city of Winder, in Barrow County, at Apalachee High School, of course, but we do know that this goes beyond that you don't necessarily have to live in this community to still be impacted by this and to still have questions and concerns and to look at perhaps your own children or your grandchildren or your nieces and your nephews and to have your heart break a little bit to know that this is a reality that could happen when they're going to school. School only just starting about 3 weeks ago here. And now we are having to confront a situation like this. So I just want to tell you what we know so far and have a look ahead at what we are going to be following for you tonight. So this is video from earlier today. We are playing images all from earlier as far as what happened at Apalachee High School. We are told from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation that around 10:20 this morning is when they learned there were reports of shots fired at Apalachee High School. That is when 2 school resource officers, the GBI says, confronted this suspect. The suspect has been identified by investigators as 14-year-old Colt Gray, who is a student of Apalachee High School. At that time, there was some sort of dialogue between these school resource officers and that suspect, saying essentially that this is not going to end well for you unless you come with us. And so the suspect, a 14-year-old student, was taken into custody. We know from what the GBI told us that he has been speaking with investigators. And at this time, there is no indication of any kind of motive. There is no indication that this suspect was targeting anyone in particular. These are all still questions that we have. And even at this hour, we know that both local and federal investigators are still on scene collecting evidence because, unfortunately, Apalachee High School is now a crime scene as a result of the events that unfolded today. Now, we heard from the Barrow County Sheriff who said, "I never imagined." He said that he went through that school system. His children went through that school system. And this is something that he never expected to have to be addressing the media about, addressing parents or the community about. Just a very, very sad day. something that we never want to have to report on. Again, all of these images that you're seeing now took place earlier. We see parents and loved ones being reunited with their children. We saw that students were being gathered at the football stadium to get them safely away from the school and waiting there until their loved ones could come pick them up or to get onto the bus to return home. We even spoke with students who say that at first, they didn't know if it was a drill or not because they practice active shooter drills. One student we spoke with said that they had several practices last year, so there was that moment at first of wondering, is this even real? And unfortunately, it was all too real today. The Barrow County Sheriff going on to say that he heard personally from Governor Brian Kemp, who said that he would help with whatever Barrow County may need as a result of this, and that there will be grief counseling available for those who are impacted by this at the school. It's important to note here, if you have a student that goes to Apalachee High School, classes will be suspended, we know, for at least the rest of the week. Beyond that, we don't know at this point, but they did say the office will be open, again, to allow anyone to meet with a grief counselor. We know that there are just a lot of questions still in front of us, and unfortunately, no good answers as to why something like this took place today. At this time, law enforcement still has not identified the kind of weapon that was used. We did ask about that. They have not released that information at this point. And this video that you're seeing right now, our reporter Adam Murphy was given this cell phone video from a student with permission to use it from that student's parents. And you can see just the commotion of students having to clear out. You can see appear to be law enforcement there and filing now out of the halls. So again, what we know is that a 14-year-old suspect who has been identified by law enforcement as Colt Gray was taken into custody. 4 people were killed. 2 of those were students, and 2 of those were teachers. At this time, we are awaiting information to release the identities of those individuals to make sure next of kin has been notified. We also know that 9 people had to be hospitalized. When we asked law enforcement if their injuries were a result of gunshot wounds, he said yes, at least in some capacity for all of those individuals. We also know from our reporter Madeline Montgomery that there were other students that had to, and faculty members that had to be taken to the hospital as a result of anxiety attacks or panic attacks, things that were happened as a result of that shooting as well. So what we know as far as what comes next, we are awaiting another press briefing that law enforcement says is going to take place in less than an hour now. We are awaiting that at 9 p.m. and we will hopefully have answers to more of these questions. I see Snakeboy 8969 watching saying, "My friend was there." Ron saying that this is just so sad. We know that this hits home for a lot of people. Maybe you live in Winder, maybe you live in Barrow County, maybe you or someone you know goes to Apalachee High School, or maybe you're not even from this community, but you have seen events like this take place all too often. We know, based on our investigative team, they compiled some data. They said that there were 97 gun-related incidents that happened in the state of Georgia in the last year. Of course, now, sadly, adding another to that list. We have live team coverage for you tonight on Atlanta News First. We have crews spread out all over Barrow County. We have crews outside of the hospitals as well. And we know that you all still have questions and we want to get those answers for you. Again, we do know that there is going to be another press briefing taking place in less than an hour. That is set to be taking place at 9. We also know there was a vigil tonight. Our reporter Blake Devine out there to give families, to give loved ones a place where they could come together and lean on each other to let everyone know that they're there for one another. This is at Jug Tavern Park. It was in Winder. That happened around 7, and we know that our reporter Blake Devine is going to have more moments from that as well. I see Landon asking, have any victims been released yet? At this time here at Atlanta News First, we have not confirmed the identities of any of those victims, but that is something that we are working to do. Understand it's a delicate balance because there are so many different law enforcement agencies working on this. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Barrow County Sheriff's Office, even federal investigators. And so we certainly want to make sure that next of kin has been notified before we release any details. We certainly would not want a loved one to find out through us. We want to make sure that it goes through those proper channels. I'm going to go ahead and take you back out here live. Keep in mind, you can always tune in on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. We have several stories up there right now. This is also a good time to go ahead and download our Atlanta News First app. That way you can get breaking news updates sent directly to your phone, and you will be alerted when that next press briefing starts in just about 50 minutes now. So switching gears here a little bit, I do want to go ahead and give you a live look outside. It has been a tough day. It has been a tough day. There are a lot of heavy hearts right now, but I do want to take one brief moment, one collective sigh, just let you take a live look outside. And I'm going to turn things over now to my colleague, First Alert meteorologist Patrick Pete. He has a look at some brighter days ahead. We will say that literally and figuratively here, Patrick. We know that this is just never the type of news that we like to report. And so I do want to leave you all with some positive news, and that is our forecast, right, Patrick?
Yes. It is looking pretty good for the most part, Carly. Feels good outside. Temperatures are cooler than they've been for a while. The dew points have dropped, and it's looking pretty amazing. There are some changes on the way, and we want to make sure that we keep you updated on that. There is a First Alert weather day in the forecast on Friday. I'm going to be very frank with you. This is going to be a very low-end First Alert weather day. I think that this is going to be impactful to people who have maybe Friday evening plans. Maybe you're going to see a football game. Maybe it's date night. Maybe you're trying to get out and about and get into the streets. That could be impacted by this rain chance that we have. Important to note that we were looking at the potential for some thunder with this. It looks like that's going to be to the south of us. So we're not expecting thunderstorms out of this. This is just going to be straight rain throughout the late half of the day Friday. Severe weather not expected. And we're going to be dealing with some cooler numbers. So because of the clouds and the rain, temperatures are going to only top out in the 70s as we head into Friday. I do want to make sure that I throw one more thing up here for you all. Let's get this going, and then we can dive into the forecast. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have in the chat. So there we go. So here's that breakdown once again. A First Alert weather day, a low impact First Alert for some scattered rain. And I think this is going to be a little soggy in the evening. The heavier totals will be south of Atlanta. Right now, we're dealing with clouds. They will continue to build into the area as we head into the evening hours. 79 degrees right now. East breeze at about 9 miles per hour. That's what's brought in this drier air. It's what's kept us a little bit cooler through the day today, and that's what's going to keep us cool as we head into your Thursday as well. Morning temperatures tomorrow will be a degree or two warmer than they were this morning. Now, it was in the low to mid-60s today, so a couple more degrees, not bad. The cloud cover really going to keep us a little bit warmer. Mid to upper 60s across the region. Expecting it to be a cloudy day tomorrow. We're going to call it a 20 to 30% chance of a spotty shower. Could see some of that in the afternoon and then another wave in the evening, but it's going to be really spotty. Not expecting this to be a major impact, and that's why tomorrow's not a First Alert weather day. Temperatures are going to spend the bulk of the day in the 70s, but I do think we nudge into the lower 80s the second half of the afternoon for just a couple of hours, and then temperatures trend cooler as we head into Friday. Here's the setup. So there is a stalled boundary to the south of us, right? And when you have stalled boundaries, typically in the afternoons, and even sometimes if there's low pressure moving through, that could happen any time of day, you'll get rain chances along that boundary. And that's exactly what we're going to watch unfold on Friday. The heavier rain will be south of Atlanta, but I do think some of our southernmost communities, I'm looking at you in places like Pike, Lamar counties, Upson County, Butts County, you guys could get a little bit more rain than we get here inside of the city of Atlanta. But nonetheless, it's the First Alert for everybody. Here's how we get through your Friday. Pretty dry start to the morning. We are dealing with clouds, but you can already see the moisture starting to build in from the west. I do think we'll start to see some light showers trickling in around lunchtime, especially for areas south of the city. Our better rain chances will arrive as we get closer to around the 4 to 5 o'clock time frame. A lot of the models keeping the bulk of the moisture pretty much along and south of the I-20 corridor, south and east of I-85 as well. So the northwesternmost communities, it looks like you're going to see a passing shower or two, but for the most part, that real rain chance will be south of I-20 and I-85. Scattered rain lingering through the evening, and you can kind of see it oriented along I-85 at this point, heaviest rain chances, and then we trend a little bit drier north and west of Atlanta in the very early hours Saturday morning. I think our rain chances at about 20% drop off well before noon on Saturday. And you can see here, just by the plots of the rain totals that we're expecting, that this isn't going to be a major impact to everybody. The higher totals south of the city, the closer you get to middle Georgia, that's where we could really be watching for some isolated instances of flooding, because some of those folks could see upwards of 2.5 inches of rain in some of this, but I don't think this is going to be a widespread issue. And once again, it's going to be mainly south of our viewing area. So something we'll watch, of course, because these systems can lift north and jog in any direction. But for the most part, I really do feel that that's where that axis of rain will be heaviest. Saturday afternoon, we trend drier, and we're in the mid-80s. So the clouds start to break, and everybody's happy and in the streets and the parks with the kids, yada, 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 because it's going to feel amazing as we head into Saturday, and that will continue into Sunday. Sunday, the clear weekend winter, so we'll have enough dry time so that people can get out, maybe not have to walk through puddles and stuff like that. But I really do think that that's going to set the stage for a very gorgeous stretch of weather heading into the beginning of next week. Watching those morning temperatures Sunday morning and Monday, because the low 60s in Atlanta means that most folks are waking up to temperatures in the 50s, which I'm not going to call it hoodie weather, but it's going to feel amazing to step outside. And I don't know if you woke up early this morning. I did. And that nice, crisp, fall-like feel was in the air. If I were a person who liked pumpkin spice lattes, maybe that would have been my vibe this morning. Instead, I just had regular black coffee with a little bit of sugar. Anyways, a gorgeous start to the week, and even heading into the middle of the week, temperatures hanging out in the mid-80s. Really not much to complain about in this forecast. Now, we are quickly approaching what is considered the peak of hurricane season, right? It's typically around September 10th, and that's typically whenever we start to see things bubble up. I mean, think back. When was the last time you could think of a Labor Day weekend where we weren't tracking some storm that could potentially mess up somebody's Labor Day plans? Yeah, it's been quiet in the Atlantic Basin for the better part of almost a month now. The National Hurricane Center, us here at the First Alert Weather Center, we're all watching 4 areas, 4 disturbances out in the Atlantic Basin. Being quite honest and being quite frank, they're all looking shabby. The one area that I'm keeping an eye on right now will be this area in the Caribbean that's going to be moving into the Bay of Campeche, because some models are trying to pick up on something getting together, not necessarily becoming a hurricane, but at least a low developing and then moving into parts of Louisiana, the Louisiana Gulf Coast. So that's something we'll watch. Right now, the 30% chance of development in that system over the course of the next week is all I see. And then out in the open Atlantic, just off the coast of the Carolinas, there's another disturbance there. National Hurricane Center keeping an eye on, but it's going to be moving into cooler water soon. If anything happens over the course of the next day or so, that would be the best chance, and it's not looking likely. Another very shabby tropical wave just starting to move closer to the Caribbean, moving closer to the Leeward and Windward Islands, the one that's at 10% chance. Yeah, not really much of an organizational cluster there, but something that we'll keep our eyes on. And then there's an area of low pressure that's closer to the coast of Africa. And that one had a little bit of promise a couple of days ago, but it's looking a little dry. It's looking a little shabby. And so expected to really just hang out there over the course of the next week. About a 20% chance of this becoming something that we'll be talking about. So I said all that to say the tropics are pretty chill for this time of year, especially considering what the original forecast was to be. There's a lot of things that are kind of going in line with why we're seeing things kind of quiet right now, but we're going to keep our eyes on the tropics, because you never know. All it takes is just a little bit of action. One storm here, one storm there, you pop. We're tracking 2 or 3 systems. So for now, things are quiet, they're chill. If that changes, we will be the first to let you know. Obviously, still a lot of work here to be done in our newsroom. We actually have 2 anchors that are actually down in Winder right now. They're working, hearing folk stories because it's been a crazy day. And then our team here and our investigative teams, they're doing a lot of data to try to get you guys some information on and some insight onto not only the investigation that occurred or that is still occurring, but also the next steps. And anytime something like this happens, we kind of all hate it because it takes us a minute to kind of get past the initial shock, but there's all of the conversations that come about policy and all that other kind of stuff. So our team is reaching out to a lot of Georgia lawmakers. You've heard some of the statements from some of the officials today. We're going to give you guys a recap of all of that, kind of condense it down so you don't have to look everywhere to find it, and we'll be bringing that to you tonight at 10 on Peachtree TV and at 11 on Atlanta News First. I don't really like to call out people in the comments that often, but Rose, just take a minute to take a deep breath. I don't know if you have any friends, any family members that have ever been a victim of any crime or any type of tragedy, an car accident or anything like that. Think about the loss that you were processing the day that it happened, the moments that it happened. If you've ever had your kids that were just terrified of something, maybe an almost accident, right? The last thing that you would want for anybody to be doing in that moment, right, is to be questioning whether your feelings, your tragedy, your experience was real. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but whenever you see the pain and you hear the stories of these parents and how they went through, minutes that felt like hours trying to get confirmation that their kids were okay. And then more importantly, the families that are grieving, the families that have loved ones that are in the hospitals, that are being treated from injuries due to this. It just kind of makes those type of comments seem real petty and baseless. They're no crisis actors. This is real events that are happening. And if you don't believe it based off of the images that we've seen, take a drive out to Winder. Go and talk to those people. Talk to that community because they're going through it, whether they were at the school or not. That's an invasion of your sense of community whenever something like this happens, right? There's a safety in knowing that when you drop your kids off to go to school, that you're going to be able to pick them up. And they will not have any other experience other than regular school day experiences. We live in a world now where that's not the case. You can't even really take a trip to the grocery store and take it for granted. So whenever those things happen in your community, even if you're not directly touched by it, it's an invasion of your sense of security. And those type of comments are just real petty and immature, Thank you for being a viewer here. But once again, we do a lot of research here. We don't get on there and tell you something that we don't have confirmed. Before you start spewing that kind of stuff into the atmosphere, go to the community itself. Visit the community. Go to the grocery store. Go to the Kroger. Go to the Publix. Go to the corner store. Go to the gas station. And talk to those people that now have to live and process this. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not here to be a preacher. That's not my ministry. Like I said, we have a lot of information that we're working to get through, and we're going to bring that information to you tonight at 10 on Peachtree TV, and you can get that last look at it on Atlanta News First at 11. I'm not going to delay the process. I always say I'm going to keep you for a good time, not a long time. Y'all have a fantastic evening.